Researching, I went with the premise that I knew very little bit about planes. My cousin had a plane. He flies. He's a pilot. He's also an electrical or a chemical engineer. His brother is an electrical engineer, and my cousin works at Stanford. His brother works at Berkeley. You'll see that this has relevance further down the line. But in any case, I started researching about planes and air traffic control and how planes fly and the vectoring systems, as you can see from some documents that I still have. For instance, how stuff works. And I have here how stuff works. Downloaded information from 5302, I guess is what that said. 5502, my eyesight's not as good as it once was. But here's some research that was downloaded, and bottom line is I took a number of systems that already worked, so I knew that they were working systems, worked in physics, and I integrated them to create a new system that would do something new. And basically what it does is it stops planes from flying into buildings if you implement the system on the ground and in the craft, the aircraft if the system is implemented, is put into the aircraft, and a ground system is linked to that along with a satellite system. Anyway, I came up with these principles, and I put these systems together and I networked them in such fashion that it would stop planes from flying into buildings, that it would take over a plane from the second that that plane went out of flight parameters. In other words, if it was heading towards a sensitive site, be a chemical plant or a nuclear power plant or a high-rise or any other vulnerable soft target is what is known in the language. The plane would be automatically taken over by a system that prevented any pilot from steering the plane into those areas where the plane's not supposed to be and do anything horrible like crashing the plane, using it as a bomb to cause havoc and destruction. So I came up with this proof of principle, which is intellectual property, because it's got value, it meets need, and in fact the system itself, as I wrote at the time that I sent this to the military, can be used for any moving vehicle if the system is configured for it. In other words, you can use it for automated robots that move. You can use it for automated cars. You can, and it is being used now. In fact, the system was stolen, and you can see elements of it being used all over, inclusive of the bait cars that the police are now using in 2009. Bottom line, government stole my property, and government's not allowed to steal property, and I will quote you in a few minutes the laws that say government's not allowed to steal property, and that government is required to respond and pay somebody for the value of the service or the product that government decides it wants to keep. There are clear laws describing such, and this is where the beginning of my documentation of treason by government in crime begins. So I produced this proof of principle, and I called the military and I said, where do you want me to send this information? I think it should be of interest to you. It will protect the country. It meets huge need, and it's timely. And they said that they did not accept anything directly sent to the Department of Defense in its largeness or aggregate, I guess. They said that the Department of Defense only purchases products and reviews intellectual property and things like that through the technological proving ground of government, which is known as DARPA, and that I should call DARPA. When I called DARPA and I said I had this system that would protect the country, DARPA said, well, that's very well and fine. We get all kinds of ideas all the time, and we don't accept just any old idea until it has been validated by two different, separate from you, Mr. Sebastian, authorities that have the capacity to say, yeah, the system does work. Once we have two different separate authorities, i.e. two other proofs of principle from people or institutions, we will take a look at your invention and your system. So that's what I did. I got two institutions, the University of California, Berkeley, and Stanford, specifically an electrical engineer in Berkeley and a pilot and chemical engineer from Stanford. Again, they were my cousins, but the principles are principles in physics, and there's no reason that my cousins couldn't decipher the information that I had put down on paper to show that the systems worked. And indeed, they wrote two letters to me saying, yes, the systems do work. Yes, they'd have to be tweaked a little, maybe. There are some things you'd have to take into account, but that the systems, the basis of the systems work, and of that there is no doubt. Indeed, to quote the dean of the School of Earth Sciences at Stanford, who was my cousin, he was dean at the time, I quote him, and he says, "I agree that doing it is in reach technically." Quote. And my other cousin said, would have to be tweaked in order to make it a success. But, so, I got the two proofs of principles, and I did what any normal person would do who wants to benefit from his work and bring something good to the community, because you can't really market things until you have title to them, be it a house or be it intellectual property. And I went to the patent office and I did my patent research, and there was nothing like it on the books, and I got a provisional patent, paid some money, got a provisional patent, which is used. The reason you have a provisional patent is so that you can protect your intellectual property when you take it to a firm, be it DARPA, or be it of the U.S. government, military, or be it an engineering firm. So you can present them the conceptual intellectual property, and they can do the design work. For instance, when you have you get a provisional patent, you're not required to say how many teeth are in a gear. You need to show that a gear goes here, and this is what the gear does to make the system work. So the technical side of things get developed after the intellectual property is titled. And that's the correct way that things are done, which is also one of the reasons why you have the research and development clauses in contracts and so on. But I got my provisional patent, and I will show you documentation that I got the provisional patent. You get stuff back when you pay your monies and you present your material, and you get a receipt back, and I've got the receipt saying provisional patent is in force. The provisional patent is good for a year, so I took my two proofs of principles from Stanford and Berkeley along with my intellectual property work, and I sent it to DARPA, and it disappeared in DARPA. Now, I was a little distressed by it disappearing in DARPA for as long as it did, because simply this was an exercise of physics. These principles and these systems all work and were functioning in physics. As I said, I had networked several systems together that were already there on the market, indeed working on the market.